Hey everyone, this is Matthew, and welcome back to StrataGames. My last video where I made 7 Dota 2 items translated to D&D seemed pretty well received, so I wanted to just keep going. Here's 7 more Dota 2 items remade to work in D&D 5th edition. First up, we've got the Aeon Disc. The Aeon Disc was a very fun item to design. In Dota, when you go below a certain percentage of your health total, the Aeon Disc automatically triggers and a magical barrier appears to protect you from taking or dealing damage for a short time. Trying to figure out the best way to word this in D&D isn't very easy, but then I realized that there's a spell that basically does that exactly. Otaluk's Resilient Sphere prevents any damage or spells from going through the barrier. You would still take damage from the first hit that caused you to go below half your hit point maximum. This means that if you were to take a huge hit and go to 0 hit points immediately, you wouldn't be able to use a reaction to activate the Aeon Disc before falling unconscious. Still though, if you're a squishy caster that's attuned to this, you can use this to get out of super sticky situations when things look really dire. Next up, we've got the Armlet of Mordigian. The Armlet of Mordigian was one of the hardest for me to design. There's a lot of different things that could be tweaked here, but I think I've gotten it into a pretty good spot. There were 2 main routes I felt I could have gone with the Armlet. Either lean towards the increased power at the cost of life, or lean towards the toggle ability that lets you survive longer than you should otherwise. It's really hard though to find a way to make the toggle feel good in the 5th edition action system, so I just decided to go with the first route. Increased damage and armor, but at the cost of unpreventable damage every single turn. I feel like these numbers are pretty good. An increase of 4 strength means that you've increased your to hit and damage rolls by +2, which is about the power level of a rare weapon, but this requires attunement, and you'll have to pay some life for the privilege. Additionally, while it's only a bonus action to activate, making it optimal for strength fighters, it requires a regular action to deactivate, meaning that if you want to stop losing all of your health, you'll have to forgo attacking for a round. Notably, while barbarians are great to use this because of their general tankiness, they do have to use a bonus action to activate it, meaning that in the first round of combat, you'll have to choose between either raging or turning on the Armlet. Next up, we've got the Chrysalis. Chrysalis? The Chrysalis may seem a little straightforward here, but I think that's perfectly fine. It's a magical weapon, so you get a +1 to damage and attack rolls with it, and in Dota it gives you a crit chance, so I figure just increasing your chance to crit to 19 and 20 is pretty logical. Now the only other time you really see a critical hit chance increase is on the Fighter subclass Champion and the Warlock subclass Hexblade, and for Hexblade it's only on their Hex to target. Because it's not a very common ability, I wasn't really sure whether to put this as a rare or a very rare item. Either way, this item seems really sweet to give out in the 5th to 10th level range. Ooh, now we've got a consumable. The Fairy Fire from Dota that gives you a small heal burst didn't make much sense to replicate in D&D because there's already plenty of healing potions and whatnot out there. So I instead decided to make this a consumable that casts the spell of the same name. When you throw the Fairy Fire at a spot within 60 feet of you, it casts the spell, Fairy Fire, with a spell save DC of 13 at its landing location. I really like this item because I feel like consumables are one of the best ways to keep the game balanced while still being able to give out magic items. According to the designers of the game, 5th edition was balanced with the intention that you don't have to give your players magic items. But that's boring, of course, so that means when you do give your players magic items, all of a sudden they're just crushing all of your encounters that you designed for them. Consumables can help you solve that problem by going away once they're used. Now you could just say, why don't you just make a scroll of Fairy Fire instead? And I'd respond, that's a perfectly reasonable idea. But I like the flavor of this better. The Ghost Scepter from Dota 2 is a really sweet item that helps squishy heroes stay alive when up against a powerful opponent that dishes out the physical damage. As soon as someone comes at you, you simply turn ethereal and they are unable to attack you. The same is true here. Anyone in your party is able to attune to it, but it's probably best used on a wizard or sorcerer to keep them safe when in a dire situation. I was having trouble figuring out how to word the ability in a way that made sense. But then I saw that the Ranger subclass Horizon Walker has an ability that does this very thing. The ability to negate all physical damage, except the first attack, during a round of combat can be incredibly helpful. But there's downsides to it too. You aren't allowed to just activate it willy-nilly like the Horizon Walker can, which I think helps balance it out a little bit. I haven't had a chance to test this one at all, so it's possible that it needs some heavy tweaks. Maybe very rare instead of just rare. If anyone tries it out, let me know how it goes. The Rod of Atos is an interesting one. Over the years, Rod of Atos has done many different things in Dota, such as slowing people down, making them easier to hit, but it's finally settled into an item that effectively reduces your move speed to 0. The problem is, there's already the Wand of Paralysis that can paralyze, which reduces your move speed, and it has 7 charges that can refill. So I decided to go a slightly different route by making it not require attunement by a spellcaster, and making it an uncommon. As an uncommon, lower level characters are more likely to find one, and by removing the spellcaster requirement, even a martial character like a fighter or a monk can use it to chase down fleeing enemies. There did have to be some trade-off though. I removed the charges from it and changed it to once a day that you can activate it. That may seem a little weak, so if I test it a little, I may decide to give it 3 or 4 charges. And now our final item for today, the Soul Ring. I'm really pleased with the idea I came up for the Soul Ring, but I found it really hard to phrase properly. But here's what it does. While a spellcaster is attuned to the Soul Ring, they can roll any number of hit dice and lose that amount of HP, expend those hit dice, and then you regain a spell slot equal to the dice rolled. It's definitely a little wonky, but it was hard to figure out a way to make it interesting and usable, especially when similar items like Pearl of Power exist. Maybe I should just make it that you expend the hit dice without losing HP. That would definitely simplify it a bit. I also tried making the wearer lose a set amount of HP, but that seems really hard to balance too. It always felt like way too much health or way too little. I don't know. Let me know if you can come up with a better design for it. Alright, there we go. Another 7 Dota 2 items reimagined for D&D 5th edition. Thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know in the comments if you think there's something I could have done different or better, and I might make some revisions for the future. But for now, I'm going to continue working on more Dota 2 items. Maybe the Divine Rapier next? Consider subscribing if you'd like to see more like this, and we'll see you next time.